Hi everyone, Bandana here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a little Broken Arrow video, sort of looking at this new patch. I'll be honest, I haven't done a huge amount of content on Broken Arrow because, well, I'm simply been a little bit disappointed with the launch, as many others have as well. While there are certainly great things about the game, it's obviously suffered massively, and the lack of hotfixes for over a month has obviously been disappointing as well. Now we have finally got a patch today, which it's a patch, certainly. It does a lot less than I think most people were expecting, sadly. A lot of the other big features are clearly a long way off, and many of the balance changes in this seem a little bit off or not going far enough, and to be fair, I think it's very, very late for what it changes. I'm not sure why it took over a month to get this out. And I mean this more in the sense that some of the urgent stuff definitely could have been adjusted in a hotfix earlier, I would have thought, such as reducing the AC 130 to 1 instead of 2, which they've done here, and things like increasing the price of the T15. However, it is what it is, and this is the situation we're in. So we'll have a little look through the patch notes together, and I'll talk about a few of them as we go. Then I'm going to show you some statistics pulled from their own API server. And obviously, we can't say it's 100% perfect, but it gives a reference guide as to how the balance has been so far, and then it raises some questions about the balance changes they've made. I'll read through the little blurb at the top word for word. So, we are releasing a new update, 1.0.9. As mentioned last week, it is primarily a balance patch. You can find all the changes below in the changelog, and were decided after analysing feedback and metrics. Okay, I'm going to hang on for a split second to just say, I'm not convinced they've looked at their metrics very well. Anyhow, on top of this, they say the new PvE scenarios and main menu tab have been added, as well as an improved lobby creation menu. Finally, in terms of highlights, it contains improvements to the localization in Chinese. A big thank you to the players who reported these issues. So they go on to give a reminder of what they're working on. So they're working on the following areas as per the information they gave us last week, which is server stability, anti-cheat systems, the balance of the game, a surrender option, and punishment for leavers. Our commitment to improving the game will never wane, and we welcome all the feedback that you can give us. So what are the changes in this patch? We'll go through the first few, and then I'm going to show you an image, and then we're going to talk about the others. So first up, they've added a restart mission option in the escape menu where applicable. I guess this is for the single player campaign more than anything else. Added a new lobby creation menu to better highlight the different types of lobby. Added a new PvE scenario, or 3 of them in fact. They're 1 to 3 players, and they are Narva, River, and Ignalina? I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that. Anyhow, added a new design for the scenarios tab available in the main menu. Added an opportunity to select any player and check his or her kills and losses history in the history tab on the post-match screen. Added new weapon icons for player profile customization that can be unlocked beyond level 73. Added map ambience, night, day and morning in standard game mode. This setting is random, while in custom lobbies players can change it manually with the additional options menu. Profile background textures reorganized. 3 textures are unlocked every time you reach the maximum rank, so every 5 XP levels. Now, a lot of that is certainly nice to have, but not all of it is particularly urgent, right? I mean, new weapon icons certainly isn't urgent, and profile background textures certainly weren't urgent. Now, there will be a different member of the team that are working on those, I would imagine, to the people doing the balance, but I'm not sure why we've waited so long for these minor balance changes, which we're coming to shortly. So on to some general fixes and improvements. Some of these are obviously very good. Disconnected player won't get any income until their reconnection. So this was obviously quite important since it's been exploited quite a lot. Hopefully that solves that exploit completely. Additional tuning for matchmaking. Game should now wait longer for a better opponent match. Elo wise at least. So there has been cases where there's, you know, been very bad matchups. I've been there myself, and obviously as there are less and less people playing the game, the matchups have probably got worse and worse to some extent. Fixed some customization frame unlock conditions. Fair enough. Anti-cheat won't mark you as a cheater in the campaign mode anymore, but be aware you must restart the game if you want to play in another mode after using a cheat in the campaign. It should obviously be noted that that is campaign only. It doesn't apply to skirmish or anything by the sounds of it. So they have fixed some edge cases preventing reconnect button from appearing. Now it says some edge cases, that means it hasn't fixed all those cases. So I assume that the reconnect thing will still be an issue, that some people won't manage to reconnect because it simply doesn't appear. But we'll see, perhaps that's just the wording on their part, maybe they meant all of them. Fixed an issue where a unit's quantity in the UI was out of sync after a reconnect. Skirmish AI can now properly capture supply dumps. Fixed an issue in skirmish mode where only the host could see the radar status of an AI's units. Cancelled multiplayer matches will no longer affect the win-loss ratio. Supply labels are now always displayed under unit labels. Various improvements to the report players window. Fixed an issue with missiles being stuck in the air. Fixed MLRS and RT traces and VFX not showing in some cases. Adjusted napalm and incendiary areas position sync, especially when they hit buildings and other obstacles. Fixed the B-1B wing trails staying on the same position when the wings are folded. Fixed some autocannon angles which didn't have enough depression and couldn't shoot at small targets at very short range. Fixed vehicles not turning their chassis towards the threat when using some of their weapons, even if the weapons didn't need the help of the chassis to reach its target. Mission editor node on unit refunded got a new pin for amount of refunded supply. I assume this might relate to the change to the campaign mission, we'll get to that. And fixed highways of death map not working for multiplayer custom matches. So all of those are pretty reasonable changes, right? They're sort of ones we would just generally expect in a patch. Next up, we've got some campaign fixes and improvements. So the Big Wave mission fixed gold medal being impossible to achieve. They were impossible to achieve? That's quite impressive. You released campaign missions with medals that were impossible to achieve. And that's not the only one. Air-based heist mission. Fixed gold medal being impossible to achieve. Heavy rain mission. Fixed bronze medal being impossible to achieve. Road to Fiddler's Green mission. Fixed silver medal being impossible to achieve. Are there more impossible ones to achieve beyond those ones? Is that all of them fixed, or are there more? It raises questions. The self-service mission, which is one of the obviously very hard missions, the amount of supplies refunded is counted instead of the player's money to win the mission. That's why the on-unit refunded node has been added. So, or changed so that you get the refunded supply. So they could do that for that mission. Though it still doesn't say anything about the invisible timer now appearing as a timer on the screen, which is still my frustration with that mission more than anything else. Okay, so next up I want to give you a little look at this image. So this image was posted by Pride on the official Discord. I really hope they don't mind me borrowing it. And I believe the data comes from someone else, but it was posted on Reddit by Fantastic Manor 379. And then it was extrapolated into, obviously, Excel and then made into this chart. So this is specialty picks versus win rate. This is from the official games API. Now it won't be 100% perfect because it probably doesn't take into account disconnects and this, that and the other. But the absolutely massive difference in win rate from Russian to US faction here cannot be explained away by minor disconnects in all of those thousands and thousands of games. There is something very wrong with the balance of this game, and this proves it. It's always been the case that it's obvious the Russian side has an advantage. And, well, this proves it. So I would like to know where the developers are pulling their data from for the balance changes they've put in this patch, because it doesn't seem to conform to the reality of the situation. I mean, this just says it all here. I mean, minor differences and inaccuracies, a couple of percentage points, fair enough. But here you're talking about, you know, up to 10% or more between these two different sets of specialty picks with the US and Russia. And the US is always lower than the 56%, and the Russians are always way above that. So there's something not quite right here. It should be a mishmash where they're sort of overlapping each other if the game is balanced. This says it is not remotely balanced. There's no escaping this. If this data is indeed, as they've said, from the official game's API, which is the same data that the BA Hub has access to, then it's absolutely crazy. This game is not remotely balanced. So you can sit and say there's no Russian bias, this, that and the other. The stats don't lie. There is a Russian bias in this game, and it is substantially more than even I expected. Bear in mind that this data deliberately does not include Russia versus Russia or USA versus USA. This is purely the Russia versus USA matches. And just to give you some more idea of this data, this is the stuff that was posted by Fantastic Mana over on the Reddit, and I'll link that down below. This is the sort of ELO-based data, and you can see, obviously, all the way through, no matter the ELO, the Russian win rate is higher. Now, again, nothing is going to be perfect here. There's always going to be outliers because someone with high ELO gets matched with low ELO and things like that. But overall, it should balance out in general. And this suggests that regardless of how you look at this, there is a massive swing towards the Russian side, which there is Russian bias in the game. Because it's in the stats, you can't escape that. Anyhow, the reason I wanted to show you that and talk about it was because of the balance changes they've actually made. As while some of them are very sensible, others are very minor compared to what they probably should be, and then there's also a lot of nerfing going on against the USA, which surprised me a lot. I mean, although some of it seems minor, it will add up quite a lot. I'm genuinely surprised that they've taken the nerf hammer to so many of the USA specializations, considering what the stats are showing. So, general balance stuff. Active protection system's cooldown increased from 5 to 6 seconds, so reloadable RPGs can now shoot again before the end of the cooldown if the unit is not stressed. If one infantry squad goes up against a vehicle, they will be stressed, so that has made no difference at all. Incendiary munitions penetration value reduced from 20 to 15, resulting in slightly less damage against infantry, but much less damage against armored vehicles with 20 plus top armor. So that's really good, because the incendiary damage to vehicles was surprisingly high. Like, it could, you know, aid in finishing off tanks and stuff, which was quite a shock. Fast cargo planes, the C-17, IL-76 and AN-72, have had their agility increased, fair enough. Helicopter-launched anti-radiation missiles are fired in quicker succession, obviously makes them a little bit more effective against radar AA. Low-altitude bombs arming distance has been increased. Changing the position of the strike too close to the target will result in the plane having to turn around and make a new approach. So this means it will be harder to fly in and hope you can bomb that bunch of tanks, because I imagine that everybody has had that situation where a bomber has come in flying very low and just last second changed target and bombed their tanks. That's happened quite a few times to me, so that's an attempt to stop that happening quite so much. Laser range for vehicles has been increased from 2,400 to 3,000 meters, just to make it a little bit easier to target stuff. Quick change to the maps. Kaliningrad multiplayer allowed has been modified to allow a second spawn location for ground units. Obviously this is to reduce the risk of you being penned in by any cheese or exploits. Okay, and on to the changes for the specific specialization. So coastal troops, the BTR 90 number of seats has been increased from 6 to 7. BTR 90 Bakhchayu turret upgrade price has gone from 20 down to 15. The Ka-52 helicopter aim time with the KH-35 cruise missiles has been increased by 3 seconds, so time between missiles has increased by 1 second. Iskander ballistic missile resupply time reduced from 60 seconds to 45 seconds. That increases the amount of ballistics that you can obviously fire over time. The BRDM Kvartet missile reserve increased from 8 to 12 missiles, so there's just more missiles available. The A222 Bereg direct fire range has been increased from 1,300 to 1,400 against ground targets, and accuracy against helicopters has been slightly increased. Fair enough, I mean, it is what it is. Motorized infantry, the Su-24M2 now has a unique label icon to differentiate it from the Su-24MP. Grad with smoke rocket price has been reduced from 150 to 100. Makes it easier to charge in your vehicles and deploy your infantry, I guess. Not sure that's a good change. Grad with incendiary rocket price has been increased from 225 to 250. Probably a good thing. And the Grad's incendiary missile damage has been reduced from 10 to 8. Again, probably a good thing. Grad's incendiary missile dot duration reduced from 10 to 8. Again, probably a good thing. It was very strong. Grad dispersion doesn't reduce as much when shooting at a short distance. Probably also a good thing. The Spetsnaz grew with AT loadout price has been increased from 130 to 145. Fair enough. The Su-25T can now guide 2 Valkyr missiles per target up to 2 targets, so up to 4 missiles at a time. The MiG-29 SMT, its R-60 missile price has been reduced from 35 to 30. Okay. Guard tanks, so the Barbaros 30mm and 57mm variant price has been increased from 225 to 290 and 250 to 300 respectively. The Karinzatima upgrade price has been increased from 20 to 25. Sorry if I'm butchering these words. The Ingenierie Sturmoviki CQC price has been increased from 70 to 75. The Koalitzia SV price has been increased from 220 to 225. An extended range upgrade price has been increased from 30 to 35. Very minor changes here. The TOS 1/1A price has been increased from 200 to 225 and 250 to 300. Probably again a necessary change. Special Operation Forces, obviously the American side. The AC-130 availability has been reduced from 2 to 1. That was a necessary change. The Killer Egg Stinger upgrade price has been increased from 15 to 20 per pylon. That seems a little bit much, considering that's the really only thing that the US often could bring in to deal with the very strong Russian helicopters, which have an obscene amount of armor. Delta Force CQC price has gone up to 110, but the standoff price has come down from 120 to 110. The RQ-170 price has been increased from 170 to 200. The Rangers MAAWS price increased from 90 to 100. I mean, they are getting used a lot, but I don't think increasing the price is going to change that. Pararescue price increased from 60 to 70. I mean, they're not amazing. Did that price change need to happen considering the current balance of the overall game? Probably not. Rangers CQC loadout receives an additional M72A10 Law anti-infantry rocket launcher. Probably a nice change. Maybe they'll get used a bit more. The Rangers RRC close quarters loadout price increased to 80. Like the standoff loadout. Fair enough, I guess. Armored Brigade, the Iron Thunder upgrade price has been increased from 50 to 65, so that's 210 to 225. I know the Iron Thunder is used a lot, but whether its price needed to go up, I guess, is debatable. I guess it depends how it's used. I worry that a lot of these price changes are being based more on the fact that people are taking them a lot in decks, rather than looking at the overall balance of the game, which isn't really how they should be looking at it. But I am starting to wonder if that's the case, just by the fact that they're picking out things that people would definitely put in their deck because they are the best choice in that specialization. But that doesn't fix the overall balance or Russian bias to the game, I'm afraid, guys. Anyhow, the Patriot Pack 2 full missile upgrade price has been increased from 60 to 80. That seems a little bit harsh considering how many missiles the Russians can bring to bear. The AMPV Javelin upgrade price increased from 45 to 50. AMPV reactive armor price increased from 15 to 20. And the AMPV Iron Fist APS upgrade price increased from 40 to 45. I mean, again, it is something that is used a lot because it can carry potentially multiple squads, and it is a reasonably effective unit. So I can sort of understand why they're looking at that price, but again, the overall balance of the game hasn't been affected by that change, perhaps. Attack and ballistic missiles resupply time reduced from 60 to 45 seconds, so that's just to match the Iskander at the other side. Striker Cavalry Regiment, all Striker variants, active protection upgrade doesn't reduce the speed further compared to the ERA upgrade. Fair enough. The Striker ATGM active protection upgrade price has been increased from 30 to 35. I'm not sure that the Striker needed nerfing in any way, shape or form. They're not exactly amazing as it is. The Striker Shorad APS upgrade price increased from 70 to 75. Again, I'm not sure why the price has been increased there, to be honest. The Striker RV Bushmaster Javelin upgrade price increased from 50 to 55. Again, I'm not entirely sure why they've done that. It seems like one of these things where, oh, people are picking that, so we'll nerf it. M985 battleship gets 2 extra bunker buster tow missiles per launcher. Fair enough. The US combat engineers now have their own upgrade, or own unique icon, I should say. Fair enough. Onto the airborne infantry. So airborne squads themselves with a standard loadout now carry an extra AT4 rocket launcher. That's quite nice. The airborne NGSW M7 rifle damage has been increased slightly from 1.1 to 1.2. And the B-1B pitch rotation speed has been reduced to avoid suicide in its own nuclear bomb. Well, that's good to know. And then over in mechanized infantry, which is back to the Russian side, the BTO transport vehicle rate of fire with the RPO thermobaric rockets has been increased. Was that a necessary change to that unit? It was already a reasonably strong unit, and people were using it a lot, unless I've missed something in the last week. But yeah, I don't know. As I say, looking again at this image, there's a lot of changes here which feel more like they've been done just because a unit has been used a lot rather than something to affect the overall balance of the game. I'm not sure this patch is going to solve any overall balance issues, to be honest. The increase in price of the T-15 obviously is welcome because, you know, they were very, very strong, especially at the lower ELO ratings, which it's important to consider that because that's where most people are going to sit. Most people aren't going to sit 2,000 plus. Most people are going to sit below that. So you've got to take that into account. They've got to have a good experience too. So that is a welcome change, but not all of these changes feel like they were necessary, and certainly waiting over a month for some of these changes seems a little bit ridiculous. I'm not sure what's gone on there. I do feel they should have done a hotfix much earlier to some of the things, such as the AC-130 gunship, reducing it from 2 per card to 1, and, you know, probably the T-15 could have been nerfed in price a little bit sooner and then adjusted as necessary from there. But all I can see now is, are we going to have to wait over a month for yet another balance patch to further correct what is currently going on in the game? That's not ideal, and, you know, player numbers are dropping slightly more than I originally anticipated. I knew they were going to drop, but they've dropped a lot more than I thought they would over the last week, to be honest. I think, you know, it's putting people off a lot that it's taken them so long to get out what should be a reasonable hot fix for balance stuff. And I can sort of understand the community's frustration with that. I'm the type of person who's very accepting that things don't always go to plan in game development, but it's important that the developers and the publisher, in this case, communicate that with the players. If there's problems with what they're doing, they need to communicate that. If there's a reason that something has been delayed excessively, which in this case I believe it has, then that needs to be communicated to make people feel like they're not being abandoned and left with a broken game. And I feel like the communication has been relatively poor over the past month from Slytherin and STP. I know that Felix has tried to do a few interviews and things, but, you know, not everyone's going to see those. Really, they need to be putting out official statements more often. I know they've promised now that they're going to do a weekly news update for everybody to try and give you more information, which I think is very welcome. But obviously, it can't just be platitudes like, we're still working on this, and this. It needs to be more substantial, or what's the point? So my overall views of the patch, obviously there are some welcome changes here. There are some balance changes which should have been hotfixed much earlier. I don't know why we had to wait over a month for some of these changes. It's very strange to me. I sincerely hope that the next patch is going to come a lot sooner than over a month from now, because I don't think this is addressing the overall balance of the game very much, looking at the statistics. And at the end of the day, statistics don't lie. Our feelings certainly lie, but the statistics simply don't. Thank you for joining me for this video anyway. I realise it's gone on a little bit long, and I realise I've done a bit of complaining. The reality is I am complaining. I'm a little bit disappointed for, well, all of us, not just myself. Just that the launch has been a little bit disappointing in terms of how it's progressed and the lack of hotfixes, etc, etc. So I have complained a little bit, and obviously this patch isn't exactly ideal in the way it's gone about the balance fixes. It doesn't seem quite along the lines of what I would have expected, considering how the stats are showing up. I have no reason to doubt those stats, but if Slytherin and STB would like to show other stats that they're working off that are completely different, then maybe they can post that in their next little dev blog or news update. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you do enjoy Broken Arrow if you're still playing it. And hopefully these changes make a little bit of difference to some stuff. But I'll see you all soon.